Luddite, Spartan, Bohemian. These words come from real people, and their stories might surprise you. Today, we're looking at how real historical groups became everyday English words. Welcome back to the Learn English podcast, the podcast teaching English in context so you can learn naturally. In this episode, we're combining vocabulary, history, and culture because you'll learn 6 words that came from historical groups. You don't usually learn these words in classrooms, but native speakers use them all the time. For each word, you'll hear who these people were, how they lived, and how their name became a modern English word. Are you ready to improve your English vocabulary and learn these historical words? Then let's begin. Let's start with our first word, and that is Luddite. Today, when someone is called a Luddite, it usually means that they hate technology. But the original Luddites were not afraid of technology. They were afraid of losing their jobs. In early 19th century England, factories began using machines to make cloth faster. These machines replaced skilled workers and lowered wages. Wages is the money that people make from their work. Many workers and their families suffered because of these lower wages. People believed that machines were the cause of this problem. For that reason, they began destroying them. Machines can't take your job if there are no machines left. The workers also wrote letters to factory owners and local authorities warning them to stop using these machines or face more destruction. The workers signed these letters with the name Ned Ludd. Most historians believe that Ned Ludd was not a real person, but a symbolic name used to represent the movement while also protecting the workers' identities. Over time, the workers who used this name became known as Luddites. Because they were destroying valuable machines and costing business owners money, the government saw them as a threat and sent soldiers in to stop them. Many Luddites were arrested and some were even executed. At the time, the government was afraid that these protests would spread to other cities, and they worried that workers across the country might rise up and damage factories everywhere. Rise up is a phrasal verb that we use when we talk about people protesting and using their voice to draw attention to a certain cause. Because these workers fought against new machines, the name Luddite became tied to technology. Today, a Luddite is someone who resists or dislikes new technology. It's often used jokingly or casually. For example, someone who doesn't want a TV, email, or a smartphone might be called a Luddite. However, I have seen an argument made that this isn't really fair to the original Luddites. Like I said, the Luddites weren't afraid of technology. They were afraid of being replaced by machines. So I have seen people argue that the government actually won this battle, that the government wanted these people to be seen as being afraid of technology when they really weren't. They were just trying to make sure that they could make enough money to support their families. Our next group is the Puritans. I've mentioned them before in previous episodes. I did an episode on the Salem witch trials and another on the history of A Christmas Carol where I mentioned them. The Puritans were a religious group in England in the 1600s. They got their name because they wanted to purify the Church of England, meaning that they wanted to remove traditions they believed were wrong. Puritans believed that life should be simple, disciplined, and morally strict. They avoided pleasure and believed hard work showed religious devotion. Not surprisingly, the English church officials did not want them to be in England because they were causing problems within the church, and many Puritans also wanted to leave so they could found their own communities and practice their religious beliefs. This was during the time of the British Empire, and the Puritans left England and settled in what is now modern day Massachusetts. There, they created their own communities with strict religious rules. In these communities, daily life was tightly controlled. Dancing, theater, and public celebrations were often banned. Breaking moral rules could lead to public punishment, which included fines, public shaming, or being exiled. Being exiled is a way to say that you are removed from a community, that you are no longer able to stay there. So, if you were exiled from the Puritan community, you were no longer able to stay in that settlement. You had to leave and go somewhere else. Because Puritans were so strict about behavior and pleasure, the meaning of their name got associated with a very disciplined lifestyle. Today, puritanical describes someone who is overly strict about morality or enjoyment. For example, someone who thinks that birthday parties are inappropriate or immoral might be called puritanical. Next is Spartan. Spartan comes from the city-state of ancient Greece called Sparta. Sparta was famous for its powerful military culture, which many people know today from the movie 300. Spartan boys began military training at the age of 7. They slept on hard beds, ate simple food, and lived with very few comforts. This was because Spartans believed that comfort made people weak. Even Spartan leaders lived this simple lifestyle. Wealth, decoration, and personal comfort were discouraged for everyone, while strength, obedience, and sacrifice were valued. Because Spartans lived with almost nothing, their way of life became famous. And over time, their name became used to describe extreme simplicity. Today, Spartan means very simple and lacking in comfort. For example, if you have a very simple room that only has a bed and a chair, you might describe it as Spartan. Our fourth word is barbarian. You might know this one from the Conan the Barbarian movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The word barbarian began in ancient Greece. Greeks used the word barbaros to describe people who did not speak Greek. So the word originally meant foreigner or speaker of a different language. Later, the Romans used the word barbarian for tribes outside the Roman Empire. These groups had different customs, which are traditional ways of behaving, and different languages. Because Romans believed their own culture was superior, they viewed these groups negatively. Over time, the word became associated with violence, cruelty, and a lack of manners. The word no longer means outsider, but uncivilized person. Today, a barbarian is someone who behaves rudely or violently, and barbaric is used to describe actions that are extremely cruel. For example, hurting an animal can be described as barbaric behavior. Next is Bohemian. This word comes from 19th century Paris. At that time, there were many artists, musicians, and writers who were living an unconventional lifestyle. Unconventional means that they did not follow the normal social rules and acted differently than other people at that time. They rejected traditional jobs, spent time in cafes, created art, and valued freedom over money. Because of this lifestyle, people began labeling them bohemians. Many people at the time did not understand this way of living. To them, artists who rejected regular jobs and social rules seemed irresponsible and strange. But for the artists themselves, this lifestyle allowed creativity, freedom, and self-expression. Over time, the idea of freedom became a key part of the word's meaning. Being bohemian came to describe not just artists, but anyone who chose creativity over convention. Books, paintings, and music later romanticized this way of living. It was shown to be artistic, free, and expressive. Today, bohemian describes an artistic, creative, and unconventional lifestyle. We often use this word to describe a contrast because a bohemian lifestyle is usually seen as the opposite of a strict corporate, or highly structured life. And you hear this word a lot in fashion. Sometimes it gets shortened to boho, and it's used to describe fashion that is flowy or loose with lots of layers, textures, and jewelry. Think of the fashion of Jason Momoa, Johnny Depp, or Sienna Miller. Basically, how a lot of women dress when they go to music festivals. And our last word is chauvinist. The word chauvinist comes from the name Nicolas Chauvin. He was a character in French stories, so he was not a real person. But he appeared in French plays and songs and political stories from the early 1800s. The character was known for extreme, exaggerated loyalty to Napoleon and for refusing to accept criticism or reality. Chauvin believed that France was better than all other countries. Because the character showed unreasonable pride in his country, people began using his name to describe that behavior. This attitude was called chauvinism. Originally, it only referred to extreme national pride and believing that your country was always right, even when facts showed otherwise. Today, we don't call this chauvinism, and instead we call it nationalism. That's because over time, the meaning of chauvinism expanded. In the 20th century, it became closely linked to gender. Today, a chauvinist is someone who believes their group is superior, but it's most commonly used to describe a man who believes men are better than women. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something about where these words come from. Were any of these words new to you? Let me know which one in the comments. Now that you're familiar with them, you might notice these words more often when watching movies or listening to conversations. Once you know their history, they're much easier to recognize and use correctly. And that's really the point of this podcast. We're trying to expand your vocabulary and help you sound more natural when you talk to native speakers. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it or leaving a review. That helps other English learners find this podcast. You can also follow us on social media or go to our website, learnenglishpod.com. And remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode when it comes out next week. Until then, keep learning English.